Chapter 1. The book that finds you. You didn't find this. This found you. Not because you were searching, but because you were finally still enough to be found. There are books made of paper, and then there are books made of presence. This is the second kind. A book you don't just read. A book that reads you. You may not know why you press play. You may not know why your chest feels like it's both remembering and breaking at the same time. But trust this. You're not here by accident. There are no accidents on the path of awakening. Only whispers we finally become quiet enough to hear. This isn't a teaching. This is a return to a frequency you thought you had lost, to a truth that was never outside of you, to a version of you that's been waiting, patiently, lovingly, achingly, for your permission to rise again. This book doesn't speak to your mind. It speaks to your field. It doesn't require understanding. It requires remembrance. And remembrance doesn't happen in thought. It happens in silence, in breath, in the space behind your eyes when a sentence lands so deeply. It feels like you've always known it. So I will not rush, and neither should you. Let these words meet you like a mirror. Let this voice be the sound of your own soul calling you forward, not toward something new, but toward the ancient self you've carried in your bones all along. This is your initiation, not into more effort, but into more essence, not into answers, but into the kind of questions that open doors you didn't know existed. Take a breath, a slow one. Let it be the turning of the first page. Let's say to every part of you still afraid, we're safe to remember now, because this book doesn't begin with information. It begins with invitation. And if you're still here, you've already accepted. So come closer. The ink is already flowing. The next page remembers something your body is just now ready to hold. Chapter 2. The ink of memory. The ink used in this book is not made of pigment. It is made of moments. Moments you've lived and forgotten. Moments you've dreamed but dismissed. Moments your soul wrote before your body ever took its first breath. This is not fiction. This is remembrance. And memory in this sacred space is not about the past. It is about the truth you've always known, beneath the noise of what you were taught to be. The ink of memory doesn't shout. It whispers through sensations, through déjà vu, through that ache you feel in your chest. When something feels more like a homecoming than new knowledge, you are not learning anything here. You are reclaiming. Each word is a key. Each pause is a doorway. Each sentence is a spell cast in love, designed not to teach you who you are, but to remind you that you've always known. There are things your soul etched into the field, long before this life began. Truths encoded in your frequency. Blueprints only activated when the timing was divine. And now, the ink glows, not with urgency, but with certainty. This is what it feels like to meet a message made from your own light, to read lines that feel like memory, because they are. So I invite you now to stop seeking understanding and start opening to resonance. Does your breath shift? Does your spine respond? Do you feel something holy move where logic cannot reach? That is the ink speaking, not from the page, from within, because your body is not separate from your story. It is the page upon which it's written. Say this: I allow the ink of memory to rise through me now, not for books, but from within. Let that be your mantra. Let that be your softening. Because when the ink begins to flow freely, you'll remember what you promised to forget. And from there, the pages begin to turn on their own, not toward more knowledge, but toward the self, who remembers how to feel it all. And it is that self, the one beneath your thinking, that turns the next page. Chapter 3. The pages that remember. These pages don't begin when they're written. They begin when you're ready to feel them. They've been waiting, not in silence, in stillness, because not all stillness is quiet. Some stillness hums. It pulses. It watches patiently for the moment when your resistance finally softens, enough to let it in. And now, it has. You are not reading these pages. These pages are reading you. Every time you've wondered why you feel so much. Every time you've asked why now. Every time you've looked at the sky and thought, there has to be more than this. This was the more. This is not the kind of book you flip through. It's the kind that flips you. Inside out, back to front, old to true, because the pages that remember don't just tell you who you are. They show you who you've never stopped being. The difference is, now you're ready to see. This isn't about becoming anything. This is about dissolving everything. That told you you had to earn your own light. And the moment you allow that, you turn a page in your life. That cannot be turned back. These pages don't teach. They reflect. They show you your edges, your fears, your dreams that never died, but got buried under someone else's voice. Let them rise now. Let this moment be the breath between forgetting and remembering. Let these words not be read, but received, because there's a version of you on the other side of this chapter that doesn't ask to be healed. It simply knows it already is. Say this gently with reverence. I allow myself to be read by the parts of me that never forgot. I am the page. I am the ink. I am the story awakening in form. And as you speak those words, a new vibration begins to echo beneath your skin. A frequency not based on time, but on truth. One that leads you to the next realization. You don't have to find your path. You are the path. And the law that governs your next step, it has nothing to do with effort. It has everything to do with energy. It is the law of frequency. Chapter 4, the law of frequency. There is a law, older than language, quieter than gravity, and more precise than logic could ever be. It is the law of frequency, the truth that what you live is not based on effort, but on energy, not what you want, not what you hope, not what you try to become, but what you are, right now, at the level of your vibration. You don't attract what you think. You attract what you become, and you become what you habitually feel, what you silently accept, what you broadcast in the spaces where your words cannot go. This is not punishment. This is design. The universe is not withholding. It is reflecting. Always. You don't need to do more. You need to vibrate closer to truth. You need to align, not with what you think is possible, but with what your soul knows is inevitable. If you stop fighting what's already inside you, this law does not care how hard you work. It cares how consistently you return to your core frequency. So ask yourself now, not, what do I want to manifest? But, what frequency am I emitting when no one is watching? What does my presence say before my mouth opens? Because everything responds to that. Your relationships, your opportunities, your timing, your clarity, your peace. All of it is shaped, not by effort, but by energetic congruence. So, let this be the moment. You stop trying to trick the mirror. Let this be the moment. You clean your field, like a sacred altar, and say, I no longer chase. I tune. I don't force. I calibrate. I live at the frequency of already is. And as those words settle into your breath, feel your nervous system adjust. Feel your mind soften its grip. Feel your body begin to trust that it doesn't have to drag the future forward. It only has to stop resisting it. Because you don't move into alignment. You fall into it. The moment you let go of what no longer resonates. This is the law now. Not motivation. Not mindset. Resonance. And resonance doesn't ask, are you ready? It asks, are you real? Because the next step on this journey doesn't require more belief. It requires deeper surrender to the path that was never straight, to the rhythm that was never linear, to the shape of the spiral. Chapter 5, the spiral path. You've been taught to walk in straight lines. Step forward. Make progress. Don't look back. But real awakening isn't linear. It moves like a spiral. You return to the same feelings, the same wounds, the same questions, not because you failed, but because each time you meet them from a new layer of self. This is the spiral path. It does not punish. It deepens. It invites you back, again and again, so you can reclaim what was too heavy to hold last time. And this time, you're stronger, you're softer, you're truer. Most think healing means never revisiting the pain, but the spiral teaches you revisit, not to relive, but to reclaim, to gather the fragments of self you left behind in fear and carry them forward into coherence. You're not moving in circles. You are spiraling inward, toward essence, and outward, into expansion, and both are sacred because each loop of the spiral reminds you what still lives inside your frequency, the story you're still breathing, the belief you're still carrying, the version of you that's still waiting to be integrated instead of exiled. So when the same emotion returns, don't ask, why is this back again? Ask, what more can I see from here? How much more gently can I meet this part of me now? Because that is mastery, not avoiding the spiral, dancing with it. Let this chapter spiral through your memory. Let it take you back, not to get stuck, but to see from a higher place. Say this, I walk the spiral with open eyes. Each return is a deeper rising. I reclaim myself layer by sacred layer. This is how time folds, how trauma dissolves, how power returns. Through rhythm, not force. And the rhythm will now shift again. Because you're about to find something you didn't know was hidden. You thought it was a detour. You thought it was silence. But it was always the door you didn't see. Chapter 6, the door you didn't see. It was always there. That door, right in front of you. Not locked, not hidden, just waiting. But you couldn't see it because it doesn't appear to the eyes. It appears to frequency. And only when you soften, only when you stop trying to force open other doors that were never meant to lead you anywhere. But back to this one. The door you didn't see is the one that only reveals itself when your energy becomes still enough to match its code. It doesn't answer to effort. It doesn't respond to logic. It opens to presence. This is how the sacred works. Not loudly, not obviously, but accurately. You see, the divine doesn't reward hustle. It rewards resonance. So if you found this door, if you're standing here now, listening, breathing, remembering, you've already shifted enough for it to appear. And what's on the other side is not what you've been taught to want. It's not fame. It's not clarity. It's not even peace. It's power, but not the kind you were conditioned to crave. Not control, not domination, not validation. The power that lives here is the power of returning fully to yourself. The kind of power that cannot be threatened because it's not built on identity. It's built on truth. You tried other doors, the ones made of should and someday, the ones dressed up as opportunities, but built from fear. They didn't open for a reason. They were lessons in disguise. They existed to teach you the difference between noise and knowing. But this door, this one opens when you stop knocking and start becoming. It opens to the self you've buried under performance, the one who doesn't ask for permission, the one who doesn't shrink to fit. So ask yourself now, not with words, but with breath, am I ready to walk through without dragging my old story with me? Let go of the script. Let go of the version of you that needed a map to feel safe. Because what's behind this door can't be planned. It can only be received. Say this, I stepped through what I couldn't see, because now I no longer need to. I open not with force, but with frequency. I am the key. I am the code. I am the door. And now that you've stepped through, something begins to shift in your vision. You no longer just observe your path. You begin to question it, but not from doubt, from deeper intelligence. It is here you meet the question that wakes you. Chapter 7. The question that wakes you. It doesn't come like thunder. It doesn't come like a scream. It doesn't come from outside. The question that wakes you arrives like a whisper that echoes louder than any noise you've ever heard. It comes in the pause between breaths, in the silence after you've given up asking, in the space where everything you once clung to feels strangely quiet and you are no longer sure who you are without the striving. This is the sacred question. Not what do I want? Not what should I do next? Not how do I get there? The real question, the one that wakes you, is simpler. It is this: what version of me is choosing this life? Not what version of you wants something different, but what version of you is currently vibrating, subtly, silently, beneath every yes you say with hesitation, every no you bite back with fear, every dream you delay for logic's sake. The question that wakes you is the one that makes all the noise fall away. It's the one you can't answer with your mind, only with your alignment. And when you ask it honestly, without rush, without performance, without agenda, something opens, not just in you, but through you, because that question carries a frequency. It's not just a thought, it's a portal. And when you step into it, you begin to see you've been making choices from a version of self that was never meant to lead you here. A self built on defense, on survival, on inherited limits passed off as love. But now, you are waking, and waking doesn't mean you rise all at once. It means you stop living asleep. It means you begin to feel, with sharp, sacred clarity, what no longer fits in the frequency of your becoming. Say this: I allow the question to strip me of who I no longer am. I wake, not through effort, but through truth. And in waking, you stop moving on autopilot. You begin to feel the friction between your truth and your current choices. And that friction is not failure. It is invitation. An invitation to shift. Not your schedule, not your job, not your partner, but your center. Because when the center shifts, everything else must follow. And the moment you shift your center, you realize something profound. You are the shift you've always been, and the world was waiting for you to become the permission it needed. Chapter 8. The shift is you. There is no shift coming. There is no wave to wait for, no moment to earn, no external sign to validate what your soul already knows. You're the shift, not a reaction, not a result, not a product of what's happening around you. You are the cause. You are the frequency that begins the movement before it shows up in form. Every system you try to fit into, every timeline you've contorted yourself to match, was quietly waiting for you to remember your original rhythm. The shift doesn't happen when the world changes. It happens when you stop outsourcing your power, when you stop asking for the mirror to show you something different, and instead become the reflection it has no choice but to respond to. You felt the shift in small ways. That moment when your no becomes non-negotiable, when your silence feels more like a boundary than any speech, when your alignment speaks louder than your argument. You've already shifted more times than you realize. Every time you chose presence over performance. Every time you chose your breath over your fear. Every time you heard the old script and decided not to read from it again. Those were revolutions, masked as moments. The shift is not about fixing. It is about returning to a version of you that lives beneath your conditioning, to the self that vibrates beyond approval, to the energy that moves mountains without making noise. Say this with full embodiment: I'm not here to wait for change. I am the frequency that causes it. I don't ask for the shift. I become it. Let those words root into your field. Let them land like truth you've always known. And understand this: once you become the shift, you can never go back to pretending that anything outside of you was ever in control. Your power isn't found in force, but in coherence. And coherence isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's not performative. It's clean. It's calm. It's real. And the more real you become, the less you need to explain. The shift you're experiencing now is not a moment. It's a movement. And movements don't ask for permission. They simply begin. And now that yours has begun, you'll start to see the truth, hidden in every reflection around you. You're not seeing the world. You're seeing yourself. This is where you meet the first law of remembering, the law of reflection. Chapter 9, the law of reflection. The world isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. Every person you meet, every situation you resist, every synchronicity that catches your breath. They are not coincidences. They are reflections, not of your thoughts, but of your field. This is the law of reflection, one of the oldest and most exacting laws of the unseen. It doesn't care what you say. It responds to what you carry. You don't experience reality. You experience your vibration mirrored back to you. In the language of circumstance, you say, I want to feel safe. But if your frequency is still echoing fear, then the mirror gives you more opportunities to meet that fear until you release it. You say, I want love. But if your frequency whispers unworthiness, then the mirror offers reflections, not to punish, but to reveal, because the mirror is not your enemy. It's your teacher, and it only has one job, to reflect with precision what lives inside your field, so that you can choose again. That's the secret of this law. It's not here to shame. It's here to give you access to your own unconscious signal. And when you understand that, you stop blaming the outside. You stop waiting for others to change. You stop trying to manipulate the mirror. And instead, you shift your source image. Say this now. I see clearly. I see not the world, but the frequency I bring to it. I change the reflection by choosing a deeper alignment within me. And suddenly, the mirror softens, not because it changed, but because you did. This is the moment the spiral tightens. The page turns, and the next invitation arrives. Not to react, but to pause. Not to rush into another loop, but to meet what rises with something sacred, presence. Because the most powerful response to the mirror of reality isn't force, is the sacred pause. Chapter 10, the sacred pause. There is a moment between stimulus and response, between thought and action, between pain and story. That moment is called the sacred pause. And inside it, everything changes. You've been conditioned to move quickly, to fix, to respond, to fill the silence before it says something uncomfortable. But the truth is, power lives in the pause, not in reaction, but in awareness. The sacred pause is not stillness for the sake of stillness. It's presence before programming. It's the space where your old self trembles, but your true self breathes. It's where you remember that you're not your trigger, not your thought, not your pattern, but the consciousness that witnesses all of it. When you pause, the field reconfigures. What was unconscious becomes visible. What was habitual becomes optional. And in that opening, you access a new choice. Not the loud choice, not the fast one, the real one. The sacred pause is a gateway to the most powerful timeline shift you can make. Choosing from alignment, not urgency. Say this now. I honor the pause. I allow space to speak louder than reaction. I do not rush my becoming. I allow it to arrive through presence. And here's what most don't understand. In the pause, you are not inactive. You are activating. You are letting your frequency catch up to your next move. You are letting your nervous system unhook from the past. You are letting truth rise to the surface without being drowned by instinct. And from there, you begin to live differently. Not because you're trying to be better, but because you're no longer dragging every decision through the mud of your old responses. You pause, and you remember, I'm the one who chooses. Not from fear, not from survival, but from resonance. And from that resonance, you recalibrate everything, which is exactly what happens next. The system resets, not through effort, but through intention, not through control, but through alignment. And that recalibration, it begins as a ritual, a soft internal revolution. This is where we begin the recalibration ritual. Chapter 11, Recalibration Ritual, spoken by the silence that fine-tunes your frequency. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be realigned. You don't need more answers. You need to feel what it's like, to stop forcing and start tuning. This is the recalibration ritual. It doesn't require incense. It doesn't need moonlight. It doesn't ask for offerings. It only asks for your presence, your willingness to drop below your thoughts, your permission to remember that your energy shapes reality, not someday, but right now. This ritual begins in the breath, not a shallow breath, a sacred breath. Inhale slowly, not to control, but to listen. Exhale everything that no longer feels true in your body. Let your breath become the first alignment. Let it be a signal to your nervous system. We are safe. We are here. We are ready. Now feel into your field. Is it rushed? Is it guarded? Is it fragmented from trying to be so many things to so many people? Don't fix it. Feel it. Because feeling is how you recalibrate. Not by thinking harder, by tuning deeper. Place your awareness in your heart, not your chest, your field of knowing. Let your next breath say, I return to coherence, not through perfection, but through presence. The recalibration begins, not when your life looks different, but when your frequency no longer tolerates distortion. You'll feel in your decisions, in what no longer resonates, in what suddenly feels off, not because it's wrong, but because you're no longer matching it. This is the art of energetic integrity. And integrity isn't morality. It's vibrational honesty. You recalibrate by saying yes, only where your field feels open. You recalibrate by saying no, not with fear, but with love for your own alignment. This is the power of ritual, not as something you do, but something you become. Say this now. I recalibrate my life by honoring my alignment first. I do not move to please the world. I move to honor my frequency. Let those words ripple through your spine. Let them replace the static with clarity. Let them become your new baseline. Because once your energy is tuned, reality has no choice but to shift around you. And that shift becomes visible. The moment you remember, what you observe is what you invite. This is where the observer effect begins. Chapter 12, The Observer Effect, spoken by the gaze that reshapes reality. What you look at changes when you look, not just because you see it differently, but because your attention isn't passive. It's a force, a current, a field that interacts with the world around it and rewrites reality from the inside out. This is not theory. This is law. This is the observer effect. It doesn't ask whether you believe in it. It responds to whether you're awake enough to use it, because the way you see determines what continues to exist. If you observe from fear, you confirm fear. If you observe from lack, you invite lack. But if you observe from presence, not judgment, not expectation, then something holy begins to unfold. You are not just watching your life happen. You are entangled with it. You are participating with every breath, every glance, every wordless belief you forgot was still humming in the background. So ask yourself, where am I placing my gaze? What am I giving energetic permission to continue? Just by watching it with resignation instead of resonance. The moment you become a conscious observer, your life becomes malleable. It softens under your presence. It responds to your clarity. Say this now. I observe from truth, not for trauma. My gaze is sacred. What I witness becomes what I allow. You don't need to fight the old story. You only need to stop feeding it. With your attention, you don't need to fix your life. You only need to become the kind of observer who sees from soul, not scarcity, because the observer is not neutral. The observer is creative, and your gaze, when rooted in truth, is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever wield. Let that sink in, because the next choice you make will be shaped, not by what you do, but by what you assume to be real. This is where the field responds, not to your effort, but to your assumption. Chapter 13, Assumption as Creation. Spoken by the truth that moves before proof. What if belief isn't something you earn? What if reality doesn't wait for proof to begin responding to your presence? What if the real engine of manifestation isn't desire, but assumption? This is the sacred law, hidden in plain sight. Assumption creates, not because it's positive, not because it's spiritual, but because assumption is the vibration you walk as before the evidence arrives. You think reality happens, then you react. But what if it's the opposite? What if the energy you assume to be true becomes the blueprint reality is forced to follow? Assumption isn't fantasy. It's frequency. It's what you agree to vibrate as when no one is watching. So the real question isn't, what do I want? It's, what do I unconsciously assume is possible for me? What does my field believe I'm worthy of, even in silence? Because assumption shapes the reflection. Assumption gives permission to the mirror. You assume chaos. You normalize it. You assume delay. You attract it. You assume peace. You embody it, and it begins to form around you. Say this now. I assume my frequency leads. I walk as the outcome, not the seeker. I assume coherence, and coherence becomes my compass. This is the deeper secret. You don't earn new realities. You entrain to them. You become so aligned with their frequency that they can no longer stay out of reach. This is why waiting no longer works. Waiting is assumption's opposite. It vibrates as lack, as distance, as doubt dressed in spiritual patience. But when you shift into assumption, you collapse the illusion of time. You enter the timeline, where what you believe already exists, and you simply move in rhythm with it. No chase, no force, only alignment. And alignment isn't a feeling. It's a decision to remember that what you assume, you become. So let that assumption be holy. Let it be precise. Let it be rooted not in wishful thinking, but in identity. Because the next level doesn't ask for more effort. It asks for a new version of you. One who no longer visits truth occasionally, but lives there. And to do that, you must shift something deeper than belief. You must shift your identity. Chapter 14, Identity Shift. Spoken by the self you buried beneath survival. There comes a moment in every awakening when the old identity becomes too heavy to carry. It doesn't break. It sheds, quietly, inevitably, like skin that no longer fits. Not because you forced it, but because you finally remembered. You're not the mask. You are the one beneath it. This is the identity shift. And it isn't about pretending to be someone new. It's about no longer performing who you never were. We've been taught to build ourselves like brands, to collect traits, achievements, stories, scars, then package it into something palatable, profitable, likable. But awakening doesn't care about likable. It cares about true, and truth can't be faked. It vibrates. It cuts. It dissolves the layers that kept you safe, but suffocated. So who are you? When you stop protecting the version of you that was born from other people's expectations? Who are you without the guilt, the proving, the adaptation? The answer won't come in a sentence. It will come in a field shift, in how your breath slows, in how you stop apologizing, in how you make choices from inner coherence, not external permission. This isn't reinvention. This is remembrance. Because identity is not something to create. It is something to reveal. Say this. I release the performance of self. I embody the truth beneath the name. I'm not who I was told to be. I am who I remember in stillness. And as those words land, feel what begins to dissolve. You might feel grief. That's okay. Grief is holy in this process. You are grieving a mask that once kept you alive. But now, you are ready to live without armor, to breathe without shape-shifting, to be seen without shrinking. And when that shift happens, you stop chasing new outcomes and begin embodying a new timeline. Because when the identity shifts, your reality must follow. And that's when you remember, your future doesn't exist in the distance. It exists in parallel. Chapter 15, Parallel Timeline. Spoken by the version of you already living the truth. Your future isn't far away. It isn't out there, waiting in time. It's here, in this exact moment, existing alongside this one, in a parallel timeline, already vibrating with a version of you who remembers, not who tries, not who hopes, who knows, because timelines are not roads. They're frequencies, and each one holds a different reality, not based on circumstance, but on identity. Right now, there's a version of you living from alignment, making choices not from fear, but from truth, not from delay, but from embodiment. They're not perfect, they're present. They've stopped waiting to become. They're walking as if they already are, and the world is responding. So how do you shift into that timeline? Not through hustle, not through hoping, through vibrational matching. That means you begin to feel how that version of you breathes, how they speak, how they move, how they choose their yes, and bless their no. And you begin to do it now, not because you're faking it, but because you're aligning with it. Say this now. I collapse the distance between who I am and who I remember. I do not chase the timeline. I choose the frequency. And here's the truth. Your parallel self isn't ahead of you. They're beside you, waiting for your coherence, waiting for you to stop doubting what your soul has already seen. The shift doesn't need explanation. It needs embodiment. The more fully you walk as the version of you who is already living the life you crave, the more that life becomes undeniable. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. And resistance is the only thing that separates you from what's already yours, which is why the next chapter is not about action, but about allowing. The next frequency you're invited to embody is not push, not grasping, but the holy art of non-resistance. Chapter 16, Non-Resistance. Spoken by the part of you that knows how to let go. You've been taught to fight, to fix, to force, to meet discomfort with urgency, to meet confusion with control, to meet life with tension in your jaw and armor on your chest. But what if the next level isn't one? What if it's received? This is the invitation of non-resistance, not passivity, not indifference, sacred surrender, the kind that doesn't mean you stop moving, but that you stop pushing against what already is. Because here's the truth. Resistance amplifies reality. It makes what you hate louder. It feeds what you fear. It anchors what you want to escape. Non-resistance, though, it transcends. It doesn't fight the mirror. It shifts the field. It allows the emotion to rise without panic. It allows the unknown to unfold without control. It allows you to breathe with life instead of bracing against it. And in that breath, you find power, not power over, power with, power that doesn't need to defend, power that doesn't flinch, power that stands still as waves crash, because it knows it is the ocean too. Say this. I release resistance. I welcome reality as the teacher, not the enemy. I stop pushing. I allow my energy to lead. And what happens next is not weakness. It is realignment. Because when you stop resisting your pain, you begin to understand it. When you stop resisting the unknown, you open to possibility. And when you stop resisting yourself, even the broken parts, you begin to heal without effort. This is the quiet revolution. Not doing more, undoing the tension that blocks your truth. And as the resistance softens, a new state emerges. A frequency not built on reaction, but on rhythm. This is where you begin to move. Not in panic, but in flow. Chapter 17, Flow State. Spoken by the current that's been waiting for your release. There's a place, beneath striving, beyond planning, outside of time. A place where movement feels effortless. Where thought and action are one. Where presence becomes your only language. This place is not a concept. It's a frequency. It's called the flow state. And you've been here before. In the middle of a song you forgot you were playing. In a conversation that felt like remembering. In a silence so whole, you felt no need to fill it. Flow is not something you chase. It's something you allow. It lives in the space between resistance and control. It lives where you stop gripping the moment and begin to let it move you, because flow is the rhythm of your soul. When your mind gets out of the way, you enter it not by force, but by presence, not by mastering the plan, but by mastering your availability. Say this: I'm open to be moved by the rhythm of now. I release the tension between effort and surrender. I am the current. In flow, you don't just act. You respond, not from reactivity, but from resonance. You don't ask, what should I do? You feel, what wants to move through me now? Because in flow, you stop being the doer. You become the channel, and the channel isn't empty. It's clear, clear of fear, clear of hesitation, clear of old programming trying to make the divine linear. This is the power of embodied flow. You move with life, and life begins to move with you. And when that happens, you begin to feel a shift in your actions. No longer forced, no longer compensating, just true, aligned, potent, real. You no longer need to ask if you're on the right path, because when you're in flow, you're the path. And that path doesn't just move forward, it radiates. It speaks through your body, your voice, your presence. This is the next invitation, not just to be in flow, but to walk as a living embodiment of your deepest frequency, because it's not enough to know the truth. You have to become it. Chapter 18, Embodiment. Spoken by the truth that only lives when felt. Knowledge is not power. Embodiment is. You've read the books, heard the messages, felt the resonance. But resonance means nothing until it becomes rhythm, until it moves from your mind into your body. This is embodiment, not a performance, not a concept, but the felt expression of truth. Through every cell, every choice, every breath. It's easy to say, I am abundant, and still tighten when money leaves. To say, I am loved, and still flinch at intimacy. To say, I trust, but clench at uncertainty. Embodiment is not what you say. It's what you radiate. When life stops going your way, it's who you are. When no one is watching, when the mirror is gone, when the feedback disappears, when only your frequency remains. That's the test. That's the initiation. Because the field doesn't respond to what you recite. It responds to what you become. So how do you embody? You feel. You listen. You breathe truth into the spaces you used to avoid. You let the affirmation move into your spine until you walk it. You let the intention become your instinct until you choose it. You let the sacred move past your lips and into your life. Say this: I no longer speak what I seek. I become it. I don't visit the truth. I embody it. Embodiment is not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about returning again and again to the vibration you choose to live from, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, especially then, because embodiment builds coherence. And coherence is magnetic. It rearranges timelines. It communicates without words. Your presence becomes the signal. Your body becomes the message. And that message, it doesn't just shift your life. It begins to transmit a new reality. Chapter 19, Transmission of Reality. Spoken by the voice your presence speaks louder than. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't even need to try to change the world. Because once you embody truth, you begin to transmit it. This is the transmission of reality. It's not something you say. It's something you carry. It moves through your breath, through your gaze, through the way you choose without drama, and love without fear. When you're coherent within, your energy becomes a broadcast signal. And reality, like a tuning fork, begins to align with your inner state. You don't have to demand alignment. You become it. And that alignment speaks louder than anything your voice could explain. Your field tells the truth. Your frequency tells the future. What you embody gets mirrored. What you resist gets repeated. What you radiate gets reflected. This is why your presence matters, more than your performance. Because what you transmit isn't just for you. It's for everyone around you who forgot they could choose again. Say this now. I transmit the truth I've embodied. My presence is a living prayer. I don't convince, I vibrate. Let those words expand your chest. Let them shift your breath. Let them remind you. You don't need to yell for the universe to listen. You only need to align your signal with the reality you choose to create. This is how reality works now, not by force, but by field. Your body is the transmitter. Your stillness is the antenna. Your choices are the frequency. And when your transmission becomes consistent, the mirror of your life must reflect it. Because reality is not an obstacle. It's a mirror of coherence. And you've just remembered how to speak without words. What comes next is subtle, but seismic. You begin to see the mirror with new eyes. You begin to recognize that every challenge is not here to stop you, but to reveal you. Because reality isn't fixed. It's responsive. And now, you're ready to see it clearly, as it is, and as you've always shaped it to be. Chapter 20, Reality as Mirror. Spoken by the reflection you no longer fear. Reality is not your enemy. It is your echo, not of your words, but of your frequency, not of what you claim, but of what you carry. When no one is looking, this is the deeper layer of remembrance. Reality is your mirror. It's not random. It's not cruel. It's not testing you for fun. It's responding to the signal you're unconsciously emitting, with precision, with patience, with love disguised as reflection. The difficult people? Mirrors. The delays? Mirrors. The silence when you wanted applause? Also a mirror. Not a punishment. A possibility of something inside you, still asking to be seen, felt, and transmuted. This isn't to blame yourself. It's to empower yourself. Because the moment you understand this law, you stop waiting for life to validate your vision. You start becoming it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And instead ask, what is this reflecting back for me to recalibrate? This is not mental. This is energetic. The world doesn't respond to what you desire. It responds to what you are being. And when you shift your being, the mirror must follow. Say this now. I do not fear the mirror. I learn from it. I take full authorship of the reflection I call reality. And in doing that, you return to your power. Not power to control others, but power to become so aligned. That misalignment simply fades. The mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't trap you either, because mirrors change the moment you do. And that's the secret. Reality does not precede your shift. It follows it. So the question now is not, can you create a new reflection? The question is, can you hold the vibration long enough for the mirror to catch up? Because when you do, something magical happens. Time collapses. Chapter 21, Collapse of Time. Spoken by the now that contains all timelines. Time is not linear. It only appears to be when you live from the surface. But when you drop into presence, deep, embodied, cellular presence, you begin to feel the truth. Time is a lens, and you can change the way you see through it. This is the collapse of time, not the end of clocks, but the end of delay. You've been told that certain things take time, that healing must be slow, that abundance must be earned, that transformation is a process. But time isn't the gatekeeper. Alignment is, and alignment collapses the distance between what you seek and what seeks you, because all versions of you already exist. Right now, the future you want to become, they're already breathing in a parallel now. And when you align with their frequency, you meet them, not later, but here. This is why surrender is faster than striving, because surrender softens your field. Until time bends, you begin to say, I thought this would take years, and it happens in a month, in a week, in a moment, not because you rushed, but because you remembered how to arrive. Say this: I collapse the illusion of time by aligning with the frequency of already is. I'm no longer waiting. I am arriving. And let that truth settle in your nervous system. Because the more you wait, the more you delay, but the more you feel it now, without needing proof, without needing permission, the more the field starts folding in your favor. It's not magic. It's mechanics. You're not forcing the universe to give you something. You're aligning with the version of you who already lives it, and the universe doesn't resist resonance. It responds to it. So let this be the moment. You stop living in future tense. Stop saying, one day, and start asking, what would I choose if I knew the future was already happening through me? Because it is. And the more you feel that, the more the gap disappears. And in that space, without delay, without doubt, you're finally ready to let go of everything that isn't aligned with who you've become. This is not a loss. This is a sacred letting go. Chapter 22, Letting Go. Spoken by the hands that no longer need to hold. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about clearing the signal you've been holding tight to identities, timelines, people, patterns, expectations. Not because they served you, but because they were familiar. But familiarity is not the same as alignment. And comfort is not the same as coherence. Letting go is not failure. It's frequency hygiene. It's saying, this no longer matches who I've become. And trusting that the space it leaves isn't emptiness. It's invitation. Letting go is a sacred act. Not always graceful, rarely painless, but always honest. Because you can't receive what you won't make room for. You can't step into the next frequency while gripping the one that's collapsing. The art of letting go is the art of choosing peace over persistence, alignment over attachment, now over nostalgia. Say this gently. I let go of what no longer mirrors my truth. I make space for what I've already aligned with. And breathe, not to escape, but to integrate. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you've shifted. And when the shift is real, the old self must dissolve. Even if you loved it, even if it kept you safe, even if you don't yet know what will come in its place. But that space, that holy emptiness, isn't void. It's vibrational readiness. The universe cannot fill what is already full. So letting go is how you signal that you're truly ready, not just in words, but in energetic congruence. Letting go is the moment you trust the process more than the past. And from that trust, a new story begins. One that isn't written from fear or force, but from choice, from alignment, from clarity. Because now that you've made space, you're ready to choose again, not just who you are, but what you're becoming. This is where we begin. Rewriting the Self. Chapter 23. Rewriting the Self. Spoken by the voice of your truest becoming. You're not a fixed being. You are not the sum of what they said. You're not the echo of old stories. Unless you choose to be, you are rewritable. This is the sacred truth. So many forget. You can choose again. You can remember differently. You can unhook from every identity that was born out of survival, fear, or approval, and return to the one, rooted in essence. This is not pretending. It's permission to become the version of you once thought was too bold, too radiant, too much, to no longer wait for permission to be yourself, to no longer negotiate with mediocrity, to no longer rehearse the version of you that kept you acceptable, but hidden. This is rewriting the self, not by cutting off the past, but by integrating the wisdom and choosing a new frequency from which to move forward. Say this now. I release the narrative that no longer honors my truth. I write a new identity, one that reflects the soul I've always been. And as you say it, feel the shift in your spine, the way your field adjusts, not from will, but from remembrance. You are not fabricating a fantasy. You are activating a memory of wholeness, of sovereignty, of enoughness without effort. The new story doesn't need to sound impressive. It just needs to feel true. Let go of the role of the struggler. Let go of the identity of the one who always has to fight. Let go of the need to be understood by people who only recognize the version of you that fit into their limitations. You don't need to be consistent with your past. You only need to be coherent with your present becoming. The truth is, you're not just rewriting your story, you're rewriting your field. And that field will begin to speak louder than words. It will magnetize everything that matches your new vibration. Not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. And this alignment is not just a moment. It's a code, a living, breathing activation that reorganizes everything. And now that you've rewritten who you are, you're ready to receive that next layer. It's not just a truth. It's a code of activation. Chapter 24. Code of Activation. Spoken by the signal hidden in your remembering. You are not empty. You are encoded, wired with divine intelligence, imprinted with sacred potential, waiting for the right vibration to turn it on. This is the code of activation, and it doesn't come from outside. It's not something someone gives you. It's already inside you, written in the spaces between your cells, the silence between your thoughts, the breath between your becoming. The code awakens, not when you learn something new, but when you become someone true, when you step into a frequency that's finally coherent with who you really are. Not the edited version, not the acceptable one, but the whole, wild, radiant field of your soul in motion. Every time you align, a code activates. Every time you surrender the false, a new piece unlocks. Every time you choose your truth over your habit, a signal ripples through your timeline and tells the universe, I am ready to receive what already belongs to me. You don't have to try harder. You only have to become more honest about what's always been yours. Say this, I activate what was always within me. I remember the light that never left, only waited, and feel it, not in your thoughts, but in your skin, your spine, your solar plexus. These aren't metaphors. They're mechanics. Your field responds to language, but it obeys energy. When your energy aligns, your codes activate, and life reorganizes in response. That's when the synchronicities increase. That's when the impossible begins to feel obvious. That's when people say, you've changed, and you smile. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally stopped pretending you were anyone else to begin with. Activation doesn't mean you do more. It means you radiate more. And your radiance is not noise. It's guidance. You are becoming a signal. And that signal will begin to call in everything meant for you. Without chase. Without confusion. without delay, because now you're not just aligned, you're synced. And from this space of inner alignment, the outer world begins to respond with clarity. It sends you signs, it sends you symbols, it speaks in a language only the activated heart can hear. This is the next chapter, Synchronicity. Chapter 25, Synchronicity, spoken by the rhythm that remembers your name. When you begin to live in alignment, life begins to speak, softly, specifically, everywhere. That's what synchronicity is. Not luck, not random, not magic. It is confirmation in motion. It is the way the universe nods at you, without words, the way unseen intelligence places the right person, the right message, the right moment in your path, just when your field matches the frequency of your truth. Synchronicity is not coincidence. It's coherence. It's the mirror saying, I see your signal, and I respond. This is the reward for remembering, for softening, for choosing presence over panic. You felt it. That moment when a number repeats, a lyric lands like prophecy, a stranger speaks your thought out loud. It's not fiction, it's frequency. Because when you emit truth, life reorganizes itself to meet you in it. Say this now. I allow life to speak to me through synchronicity. I trust the rhythm of alignment more than the logic of control. And as you say it, open your eyes differently, not to look harder, but to see deeper. Synchronicity doesn't just show up. It reflects where you are. And the more you trust it, the more clearly it arrives. But here's the secret. You don't chase signs. You become the signal. When your presence is in tune, the field doesn't need to yell. It whispers, and you hear it. You don't question it. You flow with it. You understand that guidance doesn't always come as answers. Sometimes it comes as alignment. Sometimes it comes as a yes, without needing a reason. Sometimes it comes as a no. That frees your entire nervous system. And that too is synchronicity, truth revealed at the exact moment. You're ready to embody it. But not every synchronicity feels sweet. Some come disguised as endings, as disruptions, as unraveling. And that unraveling is not chaos. It is the final undoing of everything you thought you had a hold. Chapter 26, The Final Undoing, spoken by the silence that follows the collapse. There is a moment on every sacred path when the structures fall, when the stories lose shape, when the identities dissolve. This moment is not punishment. It's the final undoing, not of who you are, but of who you never were. The version of you, built on fear, on proving, on pleasing, on surviving. It's not wrong. It's just complete. And now, you don't need it anymore. This unraveling can feel like grief, like free fall, like the ground you built your life upon just disappeared, but didn't. It's shifting because you finally outgrew the illusion that you needed something external to validate your worth. This is where ego trembles, because ego was trained to hold it all together. But your truth knows that some things must fall, so you can finally rise. The final undoing is holy, is sacred chaos, is truth in motion, and it comes not to destroy you, but to make space for what can only emerge after the ashes settle. Say this now. I surrender to the undoing. I allow the fall because I trust the rise. I release what I no longer need to hold, even if I once loved it. This is not about erasing the past. It's about honoring it and choosing not to carry it forward. Let yourself feel. Let yourself empty. Let yourself breathe into the gaps where identity used to live. Because only in the emptiness can the authentic self begin to speak. And what it says won't come in sentences. It will come in presence. You won't need to declare it. You'll live it. And from that quiet, something begins to hum again. Not the noise of your past self, but the resonance of what you're becoming. You're no longer the seeker. You are now the channel. Chapter 27, Becoming the Channel. Spoken by the current, you no longer resist. You're no longer reaching. No longer asking to be filled. No longer pretending you don't already carry the current. Because now, you've become the channel, not a vessel to be used, a presence to be moved through, a clear, rooted, radiant space where truth flows without obstruction. This is no longer about consuming knowledge. It's about becoming transmission. You speak, and the room shifts. You breathe, and the energy reorganizes. You stand still, and the mirror responds. Not because you're trying, but because you've cleared enough distortion to let life move through you. As you, the channel doesn't grasp. It doesn't grip. It opens. And that openness is not weakness. It is intelligence. Because when you are the channel, you don't force flow. You align with it. You don't ask, what do I need to say? You listen. You let the words form through your field. You trust the knowing. That's not stored in the mind, but in the frequency beneath your skin. Say this: I am a channel. I do not perform truth. I allow it. I release blockage. I become signal. And with that shift, you stop waiting for divine timing. Because you're divine timing. Every interaction becomes sacred. Every breath becomes instruction. Every silence becomes revelation. You become the answer to questions you didn't know were being asked. Not because you figured it all out, but because you've surrendered to what's already true. And now, your presence begins to do the work. Not with noise, not with effort, with clarity. And in that clarity, you begin to dissolve the need to prove, to explain, to justify. Because once you become the channel, you also become the ritual. Chapter 28, You are the ritual, spoken by the sacred, now made flesh. You searched for sacred spaces. You lit candles. You repeated mantras. You waited for a sign that spirit was near. But now you know, you don't need to enter the ritual. You are the ritual, not the ceremony, not the setting. You, the way you breathe, the way you choose, the way you soften when you could tighten, the way you walk through the world, as if every step speaks your name back to the earth. This is sacred embodiment. It means the temple isn't somewhere else. It's you. The altar, your nervous system. The fire, your presence. The offering, your choice to remain true. What the world asks you to perform. You are the frequency. You once thought you had a summon. You are the prayer. You kept waiting to hear from someone else. You are the moment where the divine meets itself again and says, yes, this is it. So let this be your new devotion. To live as the ritual. To speak as the ritual. To love as the ritual. To rest as the ritual. To walk into every room as the most sacred thing in it. Not from arrogance, but from remembrance. Say this now. I no longer search for magic. I carry it. I no longer wait to be chosen. I am the ceremony unfolding. And as you say those words, feel them rise in your bones. Feel them melt through the old story. Feel them root in your spine until stillness becomes your power and silence becomes your signal. This is not about doing more. This is about being different. Because now, everything you do, when done from frequency, transmits truth. You don't need to explain your transformation. You live it. You vibrate it. You invite others into it without a word. And what happens next is not loud, not dramatic, not even visible to most. But it's real. It's steady. It's the most potent state of all. Quiet mastery. Chapter 29, The Quiet Mastery. Spoken by the presence that no longer announces itself. You've outgrown the need to prove, to explain, to be understood. You've stepped into something deeper now, something few will notice, but everything will feel. This is quiet mastery. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or titles. It simply is. Quiet mastery is knowing. You don't need to react. Because your presence already answers. You don't need to convince. Because your frequency speaks before you do. You don't force. You align. You don't dominate. You radiate. And that radiation is a signal of coherence so steady. Reality can't help but respond. You walk through the world without defense, not because you're naive, but because you trust your field more than your fear. Quiet mastery doesn't need to be the loudest in the room. It is the room. Say this now. I carry mastery not as performance, but as presence. I do not announce who I am. I allow reality to respond. Because here's the final truth. Power that is real does not chase. It chooses. It doesn't rush. It rests. It doesn't shout. It shifts. You no longer need to explain yourself to people still addicted to noise. Your stillness is enough. Because mastery isn't about being above. It's about being within alignment, within truth, within the deep, unwavering knowing that you are no longer becoming. You are. And now, as this journey closes, you reach the final page, not the end of a book, but the edge of a new becoming. This is where you remember. You were never reading. You were being read. Chapter 30, the last page. Spoken by the page that never needed to be written. This is not the end. This is the moment. You realize there never was a beginning. Just a remembering. A soft, sacred folding inward. Until all the stories peeled away. And only you remained. The last page isn't a conclusion. It's a mirror. It doesn't offer new answers. It reflects the truth you already knew, but were finally ready to feel. You didn't come here to finish something. You came to remember that you are the book, the ink, the page, the reader, and the writer, all at once. This isn't a destination. It's a deep embodied pause. A moment so honest. You stop seeking because you've returned to your center, to the frequency before language, to the silence that hums louder than any belief. There is nothing left to prove. There is only presence. Say this now. I'm not ending. I am arriving. I'm the space that holds it all, and the voice that needs no sound to be heard. The last page doesn't ask you to become more. It asks you to stop forgetting that you were always enough. Enough without the success. Enough without the certainty. Enough without the timeline that made sense. Because mastery was never in the doing. It was in the being, the way you chose yourself, again and again, without a guarantee, without a map, without a name. This page is blank, not because there's nothing more to say, but because now you're ready to live it. The field has shifted. The words have done their part. The rest is embodiment. And if there's one thing to carry forward from this entire journey, it's this. You are not separate from the divine. You're not waiting for power. You're not far from peace. You are it. You are the remembrance. You are the alignment. You are the frequency. This world has been waiting to feel again. So close the page, not with finality, but with reverence. Because from here, your walk is the prayer. Your silence is the teaching. Your presence is the ritual. And your life becomes the book. If this message resonated with your soul, share it. Let ripple. Let remind others what they've forgotten. Subscribe to this space. Because every day, we release something sacred to feed your frequency, to nourish your soul, and to keep you walking in light. This is not goodbye. This is welcome back.